When it comes to audio, I'm somewhat of a pro. I have always been a music lover and an audiophile and just never admitted it. From the age I was 6 and my dad played a CD. My first CD was called Nuevo Flamenco. It was by Audemars Liebert, a guitarist, and those crisp, clear pluck of the strings. In his car he had a Lexus with a I don't know, it was a premium audio system, but it was a pretty good one. It was a premium car, so of course it's gonna have a pretty decent audio system. Anyway, I loved it so much that I actually had him buy me a copy of his CD, which is now on my Apple iTunes, of course. But that was one of the things that kind of got me into audio-visual stuff. Another thing was my dad had a TV. It was a boxy TV. I want to say it was a Panavision. I played my Sega Genesis on it, and I just thought it was so colorful, so wonderful. And really the reason I loved playing those games, even though I lost, was for the colors and the experience, and I loved watching movies on it. Then I got serious. My dad came home one day with a widescreen TV. Like, widescreen? Oh, no one's gonna love widescreen. What do you think film standards are in? Anyway, I learned about the black bars cutting things off, and I thought, oh, that's gonna go away. Yeah, no. I even told my mom to buy a full screen TV when she got a big tube TV. They were huge, big screen TVs, and I was like, oh yeah, Hitachi. My dad got a Hitachi widescreen. Why don't you get a Hitachi full screen? And I was like, yeah, full screen's better. I regretted that a couple of years later when I learned that even though when I learned what widescreen actually was, and that yes, it cut off a little bit of the top and the bottom. Full screen is not actually full screen. It's not the full screen. It is actually losing a lot of the side. So it's to sacrifice a little bit of the top and the bottom for much more of the side. And I was like, oh. Yeah, that was the first time that was when I learned I'm not always going to be correct about the stuff I learned on my TV. Same with audio. About that time, I saw a 5.1 surround system, and I was going to college, and I got my first LCD TV. No, actually, my second LCD. My first LCD TV. I thought, ooh, LCD. Don't get me a normal TV. Get me a smaller LCD TV. And give me one with a DVD player built in. I got an Insignia 20-inch. Insignia, that's right. Back when it was even worse than it is now. It's okay now. It was not good back there. Then got the portable DVD player. Terrible sound. Didn't have a soundbar. What was I thinking? Well, I was thinking that it did have decent picture quality because it was an LCD TV, despite being 20 inches and way too small. And the funny thing is, before that, I had actually, one of my dad's friends had given me it had been $400, a Panasonic 32-inch tube TV, full screen. The widescreen hadn't really become popular yet. And I remember thinking, oh, this has a 3-line digital comb filter, because I was still using cable back then. And I noticed the difference. It was reduced noise. Not just a comb filter, a 3-line digital comb filter. I promise you that actually helped with cable. But was pointless when it had component actually. So when the PS3 came out, or PS2, I was using component. Then after that was the Insignia for 20 inches. Why did I go down? And then I got a Samsung. My first Samsung TV was, I want to say it was was it 32 inches? Did I have a 32-inch Samsung? That's the one I always forget. I think I had a 32-inch Samsung widescreen for a little while in between that and the 40-inch widescreen, which is the one I brought to college and got in college. I think that eventually my 32-inch Samsung, which was in college, yeah, come to think of it, I think that is the case, because I seem to recall my Samsung being a little bigger in my senior year of college, in my junior year than in my freshman sophomore years. But in any case, they were virtual. Even if there were two TVs, the reason I forget is they were virtually the same TV. Just one was 40 inches instead of 32 inches. I played the PS3 on there, and then I played the Wii, and I just thought they were so good because they were LCD TVs right when LCD was getting good. They were only 720p and 1080i, so I always used 720p because I highly preferred motion of progressive rather than interlaced. I noticed a difference, so I would always just do 720p. Darn Samsung being behind all the time. But anyway, yeah, I love that. My my first, I want to say, real TV was my step into 4K. It was a Samsung again. This time it was a 55-inch, so I made a significant jump from a 40-inch to a 55-inch TV. It was the first of my 3 display models. It was 4K. It was also 3D, back when 3D was a thing. So yeah, it was 3D as well. It ended up being $2,600 out of box without... It was missing its remote. That was basically all it was missing, and it came with like a 2-year or 3-year warranty because it was out of box back when the warranties were free if it was out of box. That's not the case anymore with Best Buy. Best Buy's changed. But anyway, that was also about the time where I was starting to explore audio. That 5.1 theater system was passive. It was weak. I didn't understand the importance of wattage. It was very low wattage, was not strong. The subwoofer didn't do anything. So I actually switched to a soundbar. I switched to a Clips soundbar. Brilliant audio quality for music. Not so good for surround sound. In fact, it didn't even have surround sound simulation. Good subwoofer though. First good subwoofer. My dad had a Sony system that had an actual active subwoofer that I liked. And my next sound system, when I got that 55-inch TV, was like, no, I need a better soundbar. I upgraded to a Samsung soundbar to pair with the TV. It was a curved bar, 11.1 with a subwoofer. You know, again, no rear speakers, just like with Eclipse, although it did have Bluetooth. What was I thinking with curved? It was a pain in the butt. It was too big. It sounded worse than the Clips did. So while I still had that TV, I actually switched to a soundbar that I had for a very, very long time until last November, and still have on my TV at the condo, the ski house. Sorry, Dad. Because I still love it. And that was a Sony this is when I started remembering model numbers because I love them so much. HTZ9F, which you can still buy today, by the way. It was a 3.1 Atmos simulated. It wasn't a true Atmos bar, but it could simulate Atmos. But most importantly, for me, because I was starting to get in my audiophile error, it sounded crisp, it sounded clear, and you could add 2 rear speakers made specifically for the bar. For even if the Atmos was similar, you could get true 5.1. And that subwoofer was pretty darn powerful for a subwoofer. There were, maybe not so much in like general content, but in movies, there are literally times where that thing would boom. That thing could thump, that thing could rumble, that thing could definitely pack a punch. That was my first subwoofer since the system my dad had that actually packed a punch. And it packed as much of a punch as my dad's first system, but it was a little more accurate. I should say it rumbled. Its rumble was a little less than my dad's system, but its punch was much more accurate, so I'll take that over there. That was the first time I actually loved a sound system, and that was about the time I ventured from LCD. That 4K I had, by the way, the 4K 3D Samsung, that was just I don't remember if that was an LCD or an LED. I think that was it was an edge-lit LED. So it wasn't backlit, it was edge-lit. Which I knew wasn't a great thing, but for the sale it was on, and it was the jump to 4K and also 3D, which I used for a couple months and then just used it as a normal TV. I jumped to... I thought I was going to go with Samsung again. I was loving Samsung. Then I saw the LG CX, and this is where we come to the modern day. Because the LG CX was my first OLED TV. It was the first time I had seriously made considerations. I knew I wanted a 4K TV. I knew I wanted a good TV. And with a soundbar, I knew I wanted a good soundbar. But I wanted something very entry level as I started to truly explore what things were like. OLED. By that point in time, QLED had been a thing, and I had been all excited for QLED. Then I saw OLED come out. It was a good thing I waited. That year, it was on sale because the LG G1 and the C1 had come out. It was basically what I did this year, which I will explain in a minute. I'm kind of going to have a review here. This is all leading up to a review of the, kind of the C5, G4 and the G5. Because I'll explain why I made the decision I did. Ultimately, the CX and that Sony soundbar, longest time I've ever had a TV and a soundbar. I kept using that. I got the soundbar like a year before I got the TV. Kept using that same soundbar, and I've been using the Sony CX for 4 years now. And loving it. That's the shocking thing. Despite all the flaws I saw, the C1 wasn't much better. It had a better processor, but I used an Apple TV anyway, so that wasn't going to be much of a difference. And yes, the G1 did look nicer, a bit brighter, but this was my entry level into OLED, so even though the OLED was darker, I'll tell you what, I actually originally brought home the Bravia. I forgot which one it was. I don't think it was even a Bravia, but it was a Sony OLED. Was it the Bravia 5? I think my dad has it. I basically bought home the Sony, whatever the TV was that the C1 released. It would have competed with that. I brought that home. Out of box, power didn't work. That's when I saw the CX and was like, okay, let's just grab this CX. Brought it home. Right choice. I loved the G. I've loved this CX for so long. It's actually been hard for me to buy a new TV. I needed a TV with a significant jump in quality. I actually went and I saw this. The C1, it was using the same panel. It just had a better processor, which I didn't need because of the Apple. I went and I saw the C2. Again, it didn't look any different than the C1. G2, it looked a lot better than the G1 did, shockingly. It looked like everything that had been wrong with the G1 was fixed. But I was still happy with my CX. G3, I don't know what happened to that. I heard problems with that there were problems with that TV. C3 looked wonderful. C3, I legit thought maybe I would pull the trigger on. Well, I wouldn't, but I could have if I wanted to. I got serious this past year. After I felt like it was time to leave the entry level and move up to the middle level. I got my home theater system, my real home theater system. It was a rough year of my life, and I was using a crappy TV where I was rented. I got to bring my soundbar, but I was using a crappy TV that just didn't match. It was so sad. And when I went back to my house, just the way things were working, the new house, my room didn't feel like my room anymore. Because we had a major renovation. I won't go into personal details, but basically, I felt like it was time for me to move out. And when I did move out last summer, so just about 10, 11 months ago, I brought with my system. I thought it was wonderful. After I got my shit together, I went and I bought a proper sound system. I did a ton of research on this. I did demos at like 3 or 4 different Best Buys, and I ultimately marched home with the. They were coming out with the Martin Logan F2s and the F20s and the F200s. I ultimately marched home with the F1 towers. I felt the F2, and this is where you're going to find something for me where my personal taste comes in, which I'm going to talk about, and that is sometimes I don't like the more expensive one. This was the case with the Martin Logans, where, yes, I thought the most expensive one, the F100, sounded better because of their wider soundstage. Well, the F10s had a wider soundstage too, as did the F2s. I preferred the more focused F1s. The F10 had a wider soundstage. The F1 had more focus. The F100 had both, but that was way too expensive. And I was still going a massive jump in wattage. I remembered wattage this time, which is why I got towers and not bookshelves in my home theater system at home. And I am not joking when this is the biggest difference I ever see. I play my soundbar now. I hear the tinniness now. I hear the inaccuracy of everything in there, especially in music. Took about 2 months to find its perfect sentence, but I haven't changed the sentence once. Martin Logan F1s. I went home with a not a Dynex. They originally had me set up with a Pioneer, but I wanted something that handled. Pioneer definitely handles music a little better, but I went home with a Martin. No, Martin was the one that the Clips would have had. It starts with D. It's not Dynex though. I went home Denon. I went home with a Denon, the second cheapest Denon, because it handled surround sound better. Because I did end up buying not 2 surround but 2 bookshelves as my surround speakers. They do tend to sometimes in surround sound be a little loud, but I just knocked their decibels down. So again, the wider sound stage does kind of make them not perfect for surround speakers, but the better sound quality made them worth it. So even though the sound stage is a little too wide for surround speakers, the audio quality, by knocking the volume down, it just was wonderful. I absolutely love that home theater system. And I've decided that as nice as the CX was, it's time to pair the higher end, it's technically middle end, but it's an expensive sound system with an expensive TV. I was ready to go get the G4, and this is where our story comes in. Now, I'm doing research. I've been doing research on the G4 all year long. I've been doing research into like audio systems, into TVs, into what's new, what's coming, into MLA, into all the different technical terms. And most importantly, I've thrown in my personal experience. I know what I need, not just what I want, what I need. I've got a very bright room. That's why the CX gets drowned out. I started doing gaming again, so yeah, I would love a TV that's better at gaming. And ultimately it came down to this. I was ready a couple months ago to pull the trigger on the G4. It was on sale for $2,600, a 65-inch G4. It was significantly brighter, and it was handling the brightness correctly, I noticed. I was like, oh, and I went home to my own TV and I was like, oh, the G series, is it finally time to jump to the G series? And the answer was obviously yes. But I heard the G5 was coming out. Gonna be even brighter. Gonna be using, and this is the important thing, a brand new panel. I knew QD OLED was a thing. Some TVs were using it. The Samsungs were using it. The Sonys were coming out with QD OLED, the Bravia 8 Mark II, because I have been looking at the Bravia 8. Ultimately, I'm just going to shut that down right now. Sony, I still hate your motion handling. And I know that Sonys are more color accurate. Don't care. I want vibrant colors. I'm an anime watcher. I don't care about color accuracy or realism. I want the colors to be popping and vibrant, which is why I always used to love Samsungs, and why Samsungs were actually reconsidered again. No Dolby Vision. Sorry, I use Dolby Vision. There's barely any HDR10 plus content out there, Samsung. Get with it. Plenty of Dolby Vision content, and HDR10 is supported. Not HDR10 plus, but it is supported HDR10 on the LG. So even my CX supports that. And my CX has 4.1 bars. That's not as important anymore because my 2.1, all my Apple TV and my game computer go into the receiver now, which are all 2.1 ports, and passes to the TV. So only one TV on my board is used. So that's why the Sony and the Samsung were actually considered this year. Ultimately, yes, I still saw the Bravia 8. Bravia 8 Mark II definitely looks nicer than the Bravia 8. I think its processor is a little better brightness. I still would take the G4. And the motion, I would still take the G4. For the past couple of days, I've been comparing. The G5s have come out. I've been staring at the G4 for the past couple of weeks, visiting every week to look at the G4 in store, running every single demo they have, and then comparing it to my CX, picking out what don't I like about the CX that I like about the G4. And the G5 came out about a week ago. And I knew what I was looking for. I knew the research. I was going in there. I saw the brightness improvement of the G5. I paid no mind to the fact that the G5 is having an HDR issue. They have seemingly fixed the Dolby Vision one with a firmware update. So I do think the ones on the display at Best Buy have the Dolby Vision update, because when they do have a Dolby Vision demo, and I did not see the crushed blacks that people were complaining about. They didn't have an HDR10 demo though. But it does look like the Dolby Vision, it was fixed. They do have a firmware update for the G5. And I think the display models had it, because I didn't see anything wrong with the Dolby Vision demos. That said, they still had G4s on display too. Both Warwick, Rhode Island, Best Buy in the North Attleboro, Massachusetts Best Buy had the 65-inch G4s on demo. Still. In fact, the Warwick actually had it on sale as an open box, as a fair condition open box, which was my last TV I've been. I think that they were both fair TVs because they both came off the wall. And they both lasted. The Samsung died after it was either 3 or 4 years, and that only came like a 2 or 3 year warranty that was free. Didn't do that on the CX because the warranty policy had changed. I did actually pair it with a 5-year warranty. And that's what I do with the G4, which I got. So yes, I did ultimately pull the trigger on a G4 because I saw the brightness I saw the 20%. Someone said 50, but everywhere online says 20, and one person has said 50. Everywhere else says 20. The 20% brightness boost in the C5, and I saw that, and I know, here's the thing, here's why I waited for the G5. I know it's using a new panel. It's using 4-stack instead of 2-stack. So its color accuracy is going to go up. And I was like, all excited for this. I was like, all excited for the color accuracy, for the brightness, because I'm in a very bright room. I think it's too bright. This is something I have never said about an OLED I looked at. I think it's too bright. That might seem insane for an OLED, considering how many times I point at my CX and say, oh, I wish that was brighter. That's the whole reason I even wanted to go to G4, was I saw the Grid Legend. I watched all sorts of different demos, and I brought it home, and I was like, it's dark. I noticed after watching the G4 so long, and so many demos for hours on end, I've been watching that G4, going home to watch the CX. I'm an anime person. I love bright, vibrant pictures. They don't look bright and vibrant. Even the Sony owns Crunchyroll, so they were actually running Crunchyroll demos on their Bravia 8s. Even the Bravia 8, I was noticing, gee, that's brighter. Ultimately, what did I end up deciding? Well, about 5 days ago, I found the G4, and this is something a lot of people were saying. If you want to wait for the G5, wait for firmware updates, wait for this, wait for that. I don't want to wait anymore. So they also said this. If you can go for a G4, if you can find a G4 at last year's month, G4 was the best TV of last year. Critically and personally for a lot of reviewers. A lot of people are scared that G5, and they're a lot of the best reviewers, Digital Trends, some of the other one, Digital Trends especially, has been my go-to for this past year doing research. They always say, go bigger. They are one of the proponents of go bigger if you can get it bigger. I can't get bigger. I did measure. I can't fit a LG 77-inch in my room. I literally can't do that. I would have to shift the couch over. 65 is dominating. 55 is too small, but 65 is like the sweet spot for me. 70 would be the sweetest spot, but they don't make one of those. So yeah, I pulled the trigger on a 65-inch G4 when I saw it open box. For the past 5 days, I've gone to Best Buy almost every day to look at the G5s, to see if the improved brightness can make a difference. Watched multiple demos of each, including some demos like the one in Warwick, Rhode Island was actually, even though there was no sound, it was performing the same, and it was different demos. It did have moments where the same demo would play, like Grid Legends or the Wheel of Time demo, where it would play. I'd have to wait a long time, but it would eventually play them, and I was patient because I want to make the right choice this time. And like, especially with the Grid Legends demo, yes, in the highlights, in the very highlights, the G5 did look better sometimes. But in the main body, in the center, sorry, I like the G4 more. It's insane. But I think because the G5 is so bright, it can be too bright sometimes. Now, the other thing is Best Buy does present these in vivid mode. Sorry, purists, but as I said, I'm not a purist. I use vivid mode. I'm going to keep using vivid mode. And I think I would have to knock the G5 down. The G5 might be the first time since my old TVs, the old LCD TVs, that I would have to do standard mode instead of vivid mode. I do think that would be the case. The filmmaker mode, no. I probably still wouldn't go that dark. Again, that's why I'm not getting to Sony, because the pure color purity. So my reviews of the G4 and the G5, what does it come down to? Brightness, is that it? Shockingly, no. Again, this could be because it's a new TV or a new panel. And this is what I was worried about. This is why I waited to see the G5 and the G4 together. Yes, it's brighter. I don't think the G5... This is gonna copyright the video. All that. And it's gonna copyright the video. I wish I had noticed that pause button sooner. Hopefully it didn't capture enough of it to get copyrighted, because I've been talking for 28 minutes. So, it all comes down to this. For the past couple of days, as I said, I've been looking at the G4 and the G5. Two stores have still had the G4 on display. And they got the demo to work here at this, so I've seen it in different lighting conditions. I can't justify paying additional $2,000, more than $2,000. I got an open box G4 for a steal. $2,055. Open box, excellent condition, not fair like my past two TVs. And that's with the warranty and taxes. A 5-year warranty and taxes. $3,500, $3,600. It would be, with the warranty, we'd be looking at $4,200, $4,300 with a 5-year warranty and taxes for the G4. It would be more than double the price. And there's going to be a huge jump from my CX to the G4. A massive jump. As I said, I noticed difference with the C3. So... and then I noticed huge difference with the G4. It literally took my eyes some time to adjust to the G4 when I looked in store. But I let my eyes adjust, And every time I go back to the G4 now, like originally I thought the G4 looked too bright because I kept going back to my CX and I'm so used to the CX. I was like, G5, you look too bright. Or G4, you look too bright. But my eyes eventually adjusted and came to the point where my CX started looking too dark. In anime, sure, it was fine, but like gaming, like Final Fantasy 16, or like right now I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077. Yes, there are moments it's too dark, significantly so. And that's why I'm going with the G4. Maybe someday, after several years, my eyes will adjust to the G5. But ultimately, it's going to be a huge, massive jump. And that's what I'm talking about. But the other thing, it comes down to new panel technology. Even Samsung has kind of abandoned QLED. And they've gone with QD OLED. Now just get the Sony Vision, will ya? Samsung, I can't go back to buying you until you have Dolby Vision. The two 4.1 and one ZR ports is not a disqualifier anymore, like last time. Look at the Sony and the other one. But the lack of Dolby Vision is. Also, Sony, I still don't like your motion. Bravia 8 motion handling, yeah, it's fine. It's clearly like a film motion. I like really smooth motion, especially in gaming. And that's why my CX is a response time of 0.8 milliseconds, which might not seem like much, but when you consider that there is a 1 millisecond response time on the Sony, on the new Sony, the Bravia 8 Mark II, and a 0.1 response time on the G4 and the G5, but the G4 has it too. It all comes down to that panel. The brighter 4-stack panel. It is technically a new panel. It's not a 3-stack like the G4 or my CX. My CX is a 3-stack, and this is where the techs come into play. Yes, my CX is a year old, and it's darker, and it's got a worse processor, although it's still got a good, Apple TV issue fixes that. It's 800 nits compared to like 2,000 something of the new TV. It's still the same panel technology as the G4, a 3-stack panel, and that's why I waited for the G5. That extra layer, that extra blue layer they had a blue, a green, and a red layer. They added an extra blue layer to, ironically enough, get warmer colors to reduce the blue, because I guess they can manage the blue better with 2 blue panels, but at the same time boost in brightness. I don't see that much. I do see a little bit of a warmer color to the C5, but not much, and only in the scenes where honestly warm colors come into play. I don't notice that much of differences in whites or blues or even greens. I notice the brightness, but you've really got to be orange, yellow, or red to notice the difference in the color. I think the panel's too new. When I pulled the trigger out my OLED panels were still new, but they were impressive, pretty damn impressive. Remember, I was coming from a normal LED to an OLED. And QLEDs were still a thing when I bought my OLED. OLEDs weren't entirely new, though. I think they were in like their second year, because I do remember OLED being like announced, and it had been at least a year. Because the C1s were coming out, and those were like the start of the real OLEDs for LG. The G1 was coming out. So my CX was at least a year old, which meant they had a year to practice. Maybe more. Because I'm sure that OLEDs were out before that. I wasn't paying attention because I actually liked my TV for once. But I'm sure OLEDs come out. These new panels, the 4-stack, the QD OLEDs, which have been out for... Only Samsung was using them, though. They've been out for like 2-3 years. There's another new panel, the RGB, coming out. There are so many new panels coming out now that I don't think now is the time to be an early adopter. The 4-stack, what I want LG to do is to bite the bullet with 4-stack and making a QD OLED panel. But they're riding hard on this 4-stack. It's a battle right now of all these different panels that I think that even though this will be my last normal OLED TV, I'm in a similar situation I was with my LCD, where I got a nice LCD TV to carry me over. And again, that was honestly in the same situation with the Samsung. I got a Samsung normal LED TV, or I got the CX LED instead of a Samsung QLED. I'm getting a panel that I know will work well. I'm going to let them battle it out. Like, that's why I didn't get a QLED. I'm going to let them battle it out. And yeah, OLED won. So good thing I didn't get the QLED, got a normal LED from Samsung, because OLED won. And I ended up getting an OLED. I think we're in a situation right now where we've got 3, maybe 4 different panel technologies battling it out. Yes, QLED has been out for a couple of years. And now they've got this new 4-stack panel from LG. Sony is working on this RGB. We've got a battle of the panels now. But here's the thing. QD OLED, it's still a freaking OLED. 4-stack, it's still an OLED. Mini RGB, yes, that's different. Mini LED, sorry, but I see the blooming significantly. I don't think mini LED is going to be unless they have said micro LED, which could reduce the blooming significantly. We've got a battle of panel going on right now. So ultimately it comes down to this. I want to see which of these panel wins. And in order to do that, I'm not going to be an early adopter. This is one case where I'm going to go what's tried, true, and tested. And that is the best TV of last year. The best OLED everyone said. And it was an OLED with MLA. It just is the Sony G4. It is the TV that I have decided to go with. It's a steal at $2,000. That G4, 65 inches with the warranty and everything, and versus at the price. The G4 would be more than double the price at $4,000 something versus $2,000, $55. I can't warrant that when all I see is a little more brightness, and the HDR is still. I just can't warrant that. I can't justify it when there are times where I actually like the G4 more than the G5. So why would I go with the G5? I think the G5 panel needs to battle it out. I think all these new panels are going to battle it out. They're going to fight. And that this is one of the times where it is not a good idea to be an early adopter. I've done the research. Yes, I do like to early adopt things sometimes. I was not an early adopter of my sound system because they're coming out with the F2, or they have come out with the F2. That's been out for a couple months now. I went home with the F1, which is why it was on sale. But that was still, and here's the other thing. It's still a significant jump. I jumped from a Sony soundbar to an F1. I'm jumping from a CX or GX, they're the same thing, just one understand, one doesn't. They're literally the same thing. I'm jumping from a CX/GX. It's a CX. The GX had the stand. Technically, the panel is a CX. It literally came. I'm jumping from a CX, which would have been the equivalent to their C1, with a slightly worse processor. So essentially, I'm jumping from C series to G series, and I'm jumping from what was essentially the C1 to a G4. So there's going to be a massive I already saw it in the store. There's going to be a massive, massive jump in quality that's going to punch me in the face. So for $2,000 instead of, it would have been when it was on sale a couple months ago, it would have been, I think I saw $2,400, but that was before tax and the warranty. I think I got it for a steal. So I've talked about for 40 minutes my justification for the G4 over the G5. I've talked about why. The color accuracy is still great on the G4. It's still significantly bright, and a lot of people have said if you could go for a 77-inch G4, go for a 77-inch G4 instead of a 65-inch G5. Again, I can't handle 77-inch. I do see the thing for that, but I'm only 8 feet away, so 65-inch G4. And there have been other people, even Digital Trends, that said even if you can't go for a 77-inch, this might be a case where you go the winner of last year anyway. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. G4 comes home in a couple of days. Literally comes on Wednesday. It's Sunday. I wait a few more days. I have tried so hard to justify the G5, and I can't. I was able to easily justify the G4 because it was brighter. It was a significant increase. My eyes took a couple of days to get used to it, but they see the benefits. They don't see the benefits of the G5. They see the benefits of the G5 over the CX, of course, not over the G4. It's weird. This is a personal opinion, of course. But the one thing I keep asking myself is, why would you get the G5 over the G4? And I don't have an answer. I literally can't answer that question. Every time in the past, why would you get an LED? Why would you get an edge-lit LED over an LCD? It's still an LED. It's still 4K. Let's do it. Why would you get an OLED from last year? Because I'm jumping from an LED to an OLED. Why would you get a C5 over a C4? They're both OLEDs. I'm sorry, that fourth stack for the slight brightness increase doesn't do it. And the QD OLED still doesn't do it. I think that the new panels need to be worked on first before, and the winner needs to be chosen, and it needs to be whittled down from 4 or 5 different panels to 2. They need to figure out what they're going to do. I think this is the time where you don't be an OLED adopter. This is the time where, after staring at them for days and my eyes just keep falling in love with it, they keep looking at that G4. They keep going back there. They keep going there, and they keep saying, just get it already. And a couple of days ago, I pulled the trigger on it, and now that I've been staring at it compared to the G5, staring at it compared to the Bravia Mark II, my eyes still keep going back to that G4. So that's what I'm going to get. And it's going to pair beautifully with my sound system. Which again, that Martin Logan F1, it's the F1, it's the C1 as the center. I didn't get the lower quality C1, I got the C1 as the center. And then it's the B10, not the B1 surround speakers, the B10 bookshelf speakers. And it's just, I can't wait to see this thing come home. And I've been trying so long I think I made this video to justify that the G4 is the right choice and that I don't need to go back to the Best Buys again the next couple on my days off. I should just go home. I should just enjoy my dark CX for a couple more days, play into Cyberpunk 2077, and then then I should enjoy Cyberpunk 2077 on my new G4 next week, and I should set it up, and it is going to need to be set up to my personal preferences. My CX is actually going to go replace the TV at the ski house. I bought a couple $100. It was just a straight up LED TV, even though I had an OLED, because I'm not up there too much. But my Samsung was actually up there. The Samsung 4K LED. By that point in time, 4K LEDs had become cheap, so I just bought a cheap one up there. And it's like I want to say it's a 55-inch. Might even be a 40-inch that's up there right now, because I had to buy a replacement. 65-inch CX just got its motherboard replaced, and it's still got like 10 years on the warranty. That's going up there. And I actually own that TV up there. It's not the one that came with the house, because I replaced. So I'll be able to sell that for a couple $100 to make a couple $100 because I own that TV. And my parents don't use that TV. I bought it, so I already confirmed with them I'm going to be able to sell it just as long as I put the CX up there. That's the plan. The CX will go up there because I don't want to put it away in storage. I want it to be usable. And I do go there a little bit, and there is an Apple TV up there. Might as well put it up there in my room at the ski house. Can't believe I didn't think. I was thinking about what to do with it. Can't believe I didn't realize till today. I could send the CX up there and replace that cheap TV up there with an OLED. And now I don't have to go use their OLED in the living room anymore, because I actually bought the stimulus soundbar up there. I'm going to run out of room though. But that's what I have to say about that's my story of TVs and sound systems and my decision to get the G4 instead of the G5. And honestly, if you can find the G4 open box in fair condition, good condition, pull the trigger. You can put a 5-year warranty on it if you do it at Best Buy. Pull the trigger on a fair condition. The fair condition, yes, it would have been in the store, but they replace those TVs every couple of months anyway. I'd still say do it. I had 2 fair condition TVs that were out of box, and they were fine. They still lasted 3-4 years without dying. Pull the trigger on the G4, not the G5.